Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Maury Zager. I'm a member of the LAX Quiet Birdman. And thank you for coming tonight to help us celebrate the life of Allan Erickson. And it's just going to be so informal because that's the kind of guy that Allan was. And we're just going to say a few words. John Marshall is going to do what he does best and tell you a little bit about it, Allan, and then we'll let John take it from there. And then the Condors, Rob Sandberg and Eric Zine are going to take Allan for his final flight over Point Dume, and they're going to disperse his ashes over the water in a beautiful, respectful manner. And all of this is going to be videotaped, so Allan's kids will have the opportunity, and grandkids actually will have the opportunity to view all of this because they live out of state. And isn't this a great fitting tribute to our dear, dear friend, Allan Erickson, whom we miss so much. Thank you, and John, it is all you.
Rob, you stay away from Paradise Cove when you get out there. Or should you? I don't know. Ellen might appreciate that. If you're a QB, please stand up. Almost everybody.
All the QBs are standing.
Ladies, have you ever seen so much testosterone in one place? Those of us over 80, well, we're hanging in there, trying to.
QBs ever seen so much estrogen in one place?
Somebody what? Estrogen.
Thank you, John. It is good to have ladies among us, although we're not, accustomed to it. And, frankly, when we do discuss this issue, man, behave when the ladies are around, or try. But
And we don't want.
testosterone hopefully brings courage, represents courage, taking care of others, qualities of generally pilots, including some of these names: Charles Lindbergh, Jimmy Doolittle, Wiley Post, Roscoe Turner, Gordon Cooper, Buzz Aldrin, Wally Schirra, Tony LeVere, Bob Hoover, Ernie Gann, Lloyd Stearman, Bert Rutan, Walter Beach, Glenn Curtis, and Allan Erickson. Now, what do these men have in common? Sure, they did fly airplanes. Some were even astronauts, but there's a lot more. They were all QBs. And if you don't fly, maybe if you're not married to a QB, you might not have heard about Quiet Birdman, the ancient and secret order of Quiet Birdmen, as we like to say. And for more than 100 years, this nationwide fraternal group of aviators has been pretty quiet. It's part of the tradition. Now, who are these guys? Well, they identify themselves with a membership card like this one here. Now, it doesn't say the bearer is a good pilot. In fact, the word pilot doesn't even appear here. What it does say is that this person is a certified good fellow. Flying just gets you in the door as a guest or a future candidate, but to become a QB, and the candidacy and initiation process is quite lengthy, you absolutely have to be a good fellow. Now, that does make it hard for some guys to get in. We do scrutinize our lawyer pilot very carefully. Now, when we gather for our monthly membership meetings, it's truly like being with 50 to 100 of your best friends. There aren't too many people on this planet who can do that. So, summing it all up, the common bond among QBs is friendship, not just flying. And as for Allan, undoubtedly Allan had a very successful career. He was an expert at designing and building models for Revell and Northrop and spent more than 4 decades, like most Swifters, learning how to fly, his quote, Swift. 1948, quote, Swift. But more important than any of that, Allan was a good husband, a good father, a good grandfather. But Allan Carroll Erickson was also a good fellow and a very dear friend of every member of the Los Angeles QB organization, and we will deeply miss him. Who stand here and talk next?
Pardon me?
What's your never at a loss for words?
John Millick is not here today because he's home as a caregiver, and he asked me to share some words, of which they never got transmitted, but I read it, so I'm going to wing it. Something new. John Millick says, through the years of flying on group flights for breakfast or lunch, the whole Whiteman crowd and some Van Nuys crowd would go off for breakfast. And Allan, Bonnie, I believe you made some of those flights. John said, it was such a cherished time. And Allan was always such an additive to the group, adding to the good fellow that we just described from John. And the tiki bar. As you walk into the tiki bar, there were some protocols of which we never cared. And Allan's chair was the first chair on the left of the seat. And we all knew not to sit there until Allan got there. And then we'd sit on his lap. But it was truly, you know, and John Millick says it is such a cherished memory and an additive to his life, the enjoyment of the brotherhood with Allan. And we shall do a toast at the tiki bar in his name for a long time, according to John Millick. And all of us that go there, we certainly agree. And that's as much paraphrasing as I can get out of that, the heartfelt message that John feels with the loss of Allan and the memories that will be cherished forever. I think that it's appropriate. Allan had the Swift, he had his cars, he had cats, which I never will understand. But with the cars, the airplanes, and his overall character, everything was perfection. I mean, you look at that car and go, do you ever drive this thing? And it was immaculate inside and out. And his airplane the same. And Claude, no side comment on that, okay? He was just a gentle man and a true gentleman. So I think I would like to do high flight. John Gillespie, McGee Jr. For it is though I have slipped the surely bonds of earth and danced the skies on laundered, laughter, silvered wings. Sunward I've climbed. I've joined the tumbling myth of sun-split clouds. And none, 100 times have you not dreamed of wheeled and soared and swung high in the sunlit silence, hovering there. I've chased the shouting winds, the Lord, and flung my eager craft through the footless halls of air. Up long, delirious, burning blue, I've topped the wind speed's heights of easy grace. And where never a lark nor an eagle flew. And while with the silent lifting mind, I've trod the high, untrespassed sanctity of space and put out my hand and touched the face of God. But in this case, it was God who reached out his hand and picked Allan up for his last flight. And as they went west, what we do know, the turbulence of the air was silenced. The approach to landing was flawless. God touched the runway and placed Allan to the runway of everlasting life. And for that, we say amen. 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 Thank you. All right, let's get some rock and roll going on here. That's it. Okay.
Come on, Rob.
For those who don't know, this is Rocco.
Which one can speak?
Come over here, baby. Sit down.
No.
Good one. My name is Ron Miller. I'm also a QB, and well, I haven't been a QB all that long, despite my obvious elder age. I became very close friends with Allan. Allan was an amazing man. He absolutely loved and adored all animals, and Rocco was no exception. When Allan was recovering from his cancer surgery, he would call me and say, "Not come see me." He'd say, "Could you bring Rocco over to see me?" And I would take Rocco over. I and Allan had several cats, which didn't faze Rocco. He saw Allan, he got out of the car and he ran to Allan. On Saturdays, which talked with Tiki Bar, Rocco always sit by Allan. Of course, Allan would share his lunch. That would help the whole situation. But Allan was just a great guy. And the wonderful thing about the organization I'm fortunate enough to be a member of, somehow we are all best friends. And losing Allan is truly, it's like losing a brother. No matter how many generations come after us, no matter how many dogs and cats come after us, there's never going to be another Allan Erickson. Allan, God bless you. May you rest in peace. Thank you.
I didn't come here to say anything. Sorry. What hasn't been brought up here, and I think should, and Bonnie, you'll have to correct me if I'm incorrect, but Allan learned to fly here at Van Nuys Airport, in the jungle. Now, some of you are old enough to remember the jungle. It was the end of Stagg Street over here, and there were enough flight operations over there that it was, in fact, a cutthroat jungle. He learned to fly at Sandville. Is that correct, Bonnie?
What?
Did Allan learn to fly at Sandville?
Yes.
And was Jeff Curtis his instructor?
I don't recall.
Okay, well, many of you may know Jeff Curtis, big tall guy
He
still.
did fly with Jeff.
He- Yeah, Jeff hangs around the airport still and has been an instructor forever. Allan learned to fly over here and learned to fly his Swift here also, I believe. He flew some of the aerobatic airplanes. He learned some aerobatics. He did quite a bit of
fun flying over there and was an integral part of the jungle for a number of years. Knew many of the people, some of whom still live, but they're not here. Some of them have passed on. Nevertheless, his roots are here at Van Nuys. He bought Swift, which I believe he called it chicken lips. It was a peculiar, it had a peculiar paint job. But Allan took the airplane and he had another guy help. They restored the airplane and turned it into a beautiful airplane. His flying experience goes way back. He's done some serious flying in little airplanes. He's done formation flying. He's done many things and has had many friends in aviation and deserves to be recognized for his flying in aviation. I guess that's kind of a dumb. One doesn't fly outside of aviation, I think. Nevertheless, he's created a wonderful legacy for himself. Let's all try to remember it. He was a good friend of all QP. Only a few of you know me. I'm sorry. I'm gonna cry through this whole thing.
It's okay.
The Southern California Swift Wing and the West Coast Swift Wing hold what they call the West Coast National Fly-In every year up in Sugar Creek, Jackson, California. Carl Johansson, who currently heads up the Southern Wing, asked me to come and say a few words about Allan. Allan and I were Hagermates for over 30 years. Had a great time. And so, some of the Swifters are new, some of them knew Allan quite well, obviously, and are getting up there like all of us in age. So I kind of gave a thumbnail sketch of Allan's life and what I'm going to present there in a couple of weeks. Allan was born August 4th, 1938. He told me about growing up here in the San Fernando Valley and watching World War II fighters, primarily P-38s, flying over the valley in the 40s. Then, of course, it was the early jets of California Air National Guard based here at Van Nuys. Then I was going to go over Allan's career. He worked, as you heard, for Revell Model Company for 2 decades, in the 60s and the 70s. His primary task was researching the markings on aircraft for the decal kits that went into those models that he was being built. He early on, due to that research, had met Ed Maloney, who founded the Plains of Fame in Chino, and of course its earlier couple of incarnations that were out there in that part of the valley. They spent many hours, according to Allan, sometimes over an hour and a half, a couple times a month, talking about aviation and what airplanes were out there, what Ed Maloney might want to look for. Or Ed Maloney had a project and wanted Allan's help in researching how they should restore the airplane and what it should look like. And I was able to experience this on a couple of occasions. When Allan and I went to the Chino air shows together, and Maloney would spot Allan and come running up, greet Allan, and say, "Here's the latest airplane I found," or "Here's where we are restoring this airplane that you're interested in." And it was a lot of fun, long conversations. And you would think, why would Ed Maloney be hunting out people walking through to hold 15 or 20-minute conversations when they're putting on an air show? But that's the way Allan and Ed Maloney were. They were like this for decades. And now I'll get into a little bit about Allan, as you know, as an individual. On one visit to Chino, Allan and I went to the gift shop, which we would normally do. And while looking through the various sections, I stopped to look at some books. Allan went over by the counter and was looking in the display cases. After a few minutes, Allan comes walking swiftly back to me, taps me on the shoulder and says, "Dennis, see that gentleman over there? Come on, you and I are going to go talk to him." So I followed Allan over. He introduced us to the gentleman, and it turns out this man had served in the Luftwaffe in the Second World War. He had been selected to transition from Focke-Wulf 190s into the Me-262 jet fighters. And his squadron's task was to intercept the Mosquito Pathfinders or photo reconnaissance airplanes and bring them down. And this gentleman proceeded to explain to Allan and I, yes, it was his duties, but the Mosquito, like the Spitfire, this gentleman said, was such a beautiful airplane, it hurt to try and shoot it down. He truly admired it, not just as a weapon of war, but as a beautiful creation that must have been a real joy to fly. The fighter pilot also explained they were very hard to shoot down because although they were prop and they were flying the jets, the Mosquito's Merlin engines and all that thrust could accelerate faster than the jet engines, the Juno engines and the 262s could spool up. So he said it was very difficult to time the interception, to have the right airspeed and the right engine settings to be able to catch up with the Mosquito, because if the Mosquito pilots saw him coming, they firewalled it and would take off and leaving the Me-262 trying to catch up, which was very difficult to do. So that's some of Allan's stories, and I'm sure all of you have heard a number of stories from him of similar type, but I'd like to point out that Allan was a friend with any pilot he ever met, I believe. Just the kind of individual he was. Allan also worked for Northrop Aircraft in the 80s through 1995. And his talent showed up in all their big display models that would go to the Air Force bases to be displayed. Like, for instance, the YF-23 Black Widow II. Then Allan retired from Northrop, but only stayed retired for a short period of time, then went back to work as near as I can remember for Pacific Miniatures, and was doing their models for a while, before finally retiring completely. Okay, aviation as his hobby. As you all know, Allan had an extensive, i.e. very large collection of aircraft models, both built and just the kits. Kits of balsa wood, plastic, metal, even a collection of the Bakelite World War II recognition models that were used. All scales, all versions. As you know, he had the tail vertical stabilizer from a real Focke-Wulf 190. He had an ME-109 rudder, and he attended at many aviation events, like book signings. The walls of that hobby office contained many pictures, paintings, drawings, most of which were signed by famous pilots like R.T. Smith of the Flying Tigers, Francis Gabreski, World War II P-47 pilot, and even Richard Bond's widow, Marge Bond Drunker, just to name a few. As you know, if you ever visited the hangar, there were two Mosquitoes that were arrived at Whiteman Air Park in the late 50s or very early 60s. Now, I've never seen much about one of them, but the other one was PZ-474, which they say never flew after it arrived at Whiteman. Well, word got out that Mosquito, which was broken behind the trailing edge of the wing, fuselage was snapped off, was dilapidated, falling apart. The airport management was trying to get a hold of the owner. He would never respond.
Marnie is suggested you might need this. There you
Yeah, thank you. So apparently the mosquito was within a day or two of being hauled off to the dump, just cut up and trash. Allan found out about this. He acquired the spinners and 3 of the cowling pieces. I won't get into how because I don't know the details. And then apparently what was left of the carcass of the mosquito got hauled off like the day before they arrived to cut it up. And I have some pictures because this is going to go with a slide presentation of those spinners and those cowling pieces hanging in our hangar. That particular mosquito, PZ474, was acquired by Rod Lewis a little over a decade ago and rebuilt. Through a common friend, that they found out that Allan had those mosquito spinners and cowling pieces. A deal was reached, and now those parts are flying on a fully rebuilt mosquito. And now I believe it's owned by a gentleman named Soames up in Sacramento area. Then I'm going to get into the Swift world. We first met Bonnie and Allan when they had purchased 3232 Kilo, which they eventually named 2 Pair, and moved into the T hangar down the road from them. Years later, we moved into hangar C5, one of the big rectangular hangars down where close to Quad, about a hangar away. Allan took over writing the Southern California Swiftwing newsletter in 1987 and continued to do so through 2006. It actually became a group effort. Claude and Marnie, my wife and I, and a few other individuals. But Allan did the writing itself. Then he would hand it to me. I would put it into the computer. We would print up some pictures. I would rearrange it. We'd take it off to what was in a print shop or copy shop. We'd get them all, the newsletters printed up. Then we'd gather it together to collate, stamp, label, and mail them off to everybody. Allan and Bonnie took over leading the Southern California Swiftwing for the National Fly-In in '87, along with a few members of the Northern California group. Over the years, Allan was principal in locating several the Swift Fly-In special guests in Southern California, including such notables as K.H. Bud Knox, who had left Curtiss Wright and joined Globe Aircraft as chief design engineer at the end of the Second World War. He's the one that incorporated the dihedral in the horizontal tail because he loved the look of it on the Douglas A-20 Boston. And he had always said it was more of an aesthetic thing than any incremental handling or performance benefits. Bud mentioned many times that the Swift was the crowning achievement of his career. The Swift, in his words, was a plane that looked right, flew great, and as all Swift owners will know, left the pilot wanting to get right back in and go flying again. And he also located Eugene Clay, who did a number of the drawings and advertisements. And so, in closing, great picture. Thank you, my friend, for all you did, and for the world of aviation. Your influence in aviation affected those of all ages. You brought the world of flight to life for many through the models we spent hours building as kids. Some were put together only to be put on a shelf for display and pride of accomplishment, while others were held in the hand and flown around the house, the yard, or even through the neighborhood holding block air battles with one's friends. For those currently enjoying flight, you enjoyed discussing all the facets of aviation, from the past history through the present and what was on the horizon. To those looking at years gone, you encourage them to pass on their stories of their aviation careers. And for those in the Swift world, to come and see their creation was highly sought after and loved by many. As your initials imply, Allan Carroll Erickson, in your own way, you were indeed an ace in the field of aviation. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've only been involved in the QBs for about 10 years now, but Allan and I almost immediately made a connection when I became involved in the hangar. And I used to look forward greatly to the Monday Lulu's lunches, and we used to marvel at Allan's ability to eat the chicken fried, I should say, the gravy accompanied by, we think, chicken fried steak that was underneath that gravy. And that, by the way, that chicken fried steak is really good. But Allan got extra gravy, and how he ever survived that, I don't know. But we always used to give him shit for it.
You know, Maury, every now and then we see him with a salad in front of him.
Oh, yeah, that, and I know where you're going with this.
I'd say, Alan, you gonna see your doctor this week?
He'd say, yes. I just want to relay a story, and unfortunately Ron took Rocco out because Rocco was panting like crazy.
I thought that was Ron.
We didn't want to
Ron too.
on and rock.
But for the benefit of those in the room that are not part of the QB organization, every year toward the end of the year, usually November or December, we have a end of the year party. We call it the washout, and sometimes it's formal, sometimes it's just suit and tie, sometimes it's black tie, sometimes it could be Speedos, it doesn't matter. 2024 was,
That'd be Butch McKee.
yeah, 2024 was black tie optional. And so it was on the fancier side, we'll say. And Allan, we were talking, particularly Ron Miller, Allan, and myself, and a few others. And forgive me, I don't remember who else. But we were trying to convince Allan, because Allan had been ill, and Allan survived some pretty hellacious cancer treatments and stuff. And he wasn't sure that he wanted to go to the washout, and because he wasn't driving at night anymore. We said, Allan. And I had a sit down with him. And as a 60-year-old talking to Allan as one of the youngsters, right, I said, listen, damn it. I said, Allan, none of us know how much longer you're going to be with us in the hangar. Let's just face it, you're an old fart. And I said, we want you to come to the washout. And he said, I don't know. And I said, Allan, and Ron was sitting next to me. He said, we are not going to take no for an answer. You will come to the 2024 washout. And Ron said, you know what? I live in Santa Clarita. You're up there in Northridge, North Hill. What is it? North Hill? Chatsworth. He said, you're on our way. He says, I will pick you up. Be there or be square. He said, okay, I'll be there. And then about 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning, Allan started making the phone calls. I don't have anything to wear. I'm not going to come. He called Ron first. Ron called me. He goes, Allan says he doesn't have anything to wear. I said, this is bullshit. I'm going to call Allan. I called Allan and I said, listen, you SOB, you committed to coming to the washout. You have no excuse. Ron's going to pick you up. Ron's going to take you home. I said, we don't care what you're wearing. You must show up to the washout. And we are not going to take no for an answer. If we have to come over there and kidnap you, we will. And he finally acquiesced, and Ron picked him up, and we had a hell of a party. It was here at the Condor Squadron. And Allan had a great time. God bless Ron and Rocco for picking him up. But a number of us had offered to pick him up if Ron couldn't have accomplished that goal. But I just wanted to say that this just goes to say how important Allan was to the hangar, because it wouldn't have been a washout without Allan, because we had already missed him at a couple of washouts because he was too ill to attend. And now he's finally well enough to come. And it had to happen, and it did. And I'm so glad that it did happen that way. Allan, we're going to miss you, buddy. And the Condors are going to send you off in grand style, thanks to Rob and EZ. And I would like to also extend our deepest gratitude to the Condor Squadron for hosting this event here tonight. You guys are so generous. And unless anybody has anything else, Jim, did you have something you wanted to say?
No.
Okay. So what's going to happen now is Bonnie has been kind enough to pass Allan over to Rob and EZ. And Rob and EZ are going to prepare to take Allan on his final flight. And the videographer is going to set up with a different kind of camera setup to memorialize that. And if everybody wants to come outside to watch Rob and EZ and Allan take off, please do that. And remember, for those of you who aren't in the aviation world, there's a red painted line just past that grass. Grass. Please consider that a wall. Do not cross that red line. You're free to stand anywhere this side of the line. What's going to happen is we're going to load, the boys are going to load up with Allan. They're going to take off. They're going to taxi out to the north, which is that way. And then they're going to grab runway 16 right, which is the closest runway to us. They're going to take off. They're going to make a right turn. They're going to head out toward the beach for Allan's final flight. And you're free to come out here, watch the departure, and then the bar, my friends, is open again. And let's take advantage of that
One more thing.
and send them off. Yes,
One more.
Bonnie.
I think all QDs should stand face west.
At what point do you want to do that? Right now? Or do you want to do that?
If we do it now, not everybody's got a drink.
No.
Yeah, let's refresh our, we will recharge the beverages and do that in a proper way.
Okay.
But yes, we will do a Gone West toast for Allan. Let's just say sometime between now and prior to takeoff. All right, is there anybody else who has anything they want to say about our brother Allan?
Beautiful thing.
Okay, God bless everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Bonnie.
Thanks, Warren.
And I got estrogen.
I love it.
Think about that for a second. I'll take care of it. I think it. Here, Robert.
Okay, thank you,
Rob.
boy.
Oh, he's right here. He's so
You're
good.
very sweet.
Robert, do you have Charlie Beck's T6?
No, it's Chris Rudd. Well, no.
This gentleman's asking.
No, I don't. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'll,
No, because Charlie Beck's is right there.
I'm here.
Gary?
Okay. Good to meet you. I'm sorry about that.
Because Charlie, I'm a member of the race plane team. Was being built on he raced at his California Med Fly at the air races a few years.
Oh yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. A long time ago.
So I'm going to tell Bill Statler that and take a picture of it. Still flying.